Hi, welcome to Second Earth Alternative. This is Felipe Osorio. Alright guys, well happy 4th of July. I hope you guys had a great holiday. I just wanted to mention that in the same day as 4th of July, as the holiday, that there was a meeting that NASA had. It was called the National Astronomy Meeting. And Emily Debrick Motter from the Cardiff University, she was basically detailing the findings from the Cassini spacecraft that basically says that they discovered methanol molecules from the plumes of Enceladus. And I mean, when I saw this story, this popped up to me right away because for some of you who might have seen, we actually had already done an episode when they first discovered hydrocarbons in Enceladus. Look at this. Do you see all those red streaks right there? Those, I believe, is the sign of life that NASA is now telling us. So while they want us to wait 10 years just to be able to verify whether Europa might have the possibility of having an environment that has life, they don't even tell us what these red streaks are. They don't even talk to us about what these red streaks are. But let me tell you something. On Earth, there is red streaks that you can find in places like the Arctic, snowy environments, and Antarctica. It's a specific type of algae called watermelon algae, which only lives in cold environments. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, okay, this is kind of interesting. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about this article because what they discovered here was methanol. And I think this is really, really important because I don't know if you're aware, but methanol in Earth is mostly associated with bioprocesses. And it's really interesting that for the people who study chemistry, who are somewhat knowledgeable, they know this. And so NASA comes out with this statement, which I thought was pretty entertaining. So let me see. They said, okay, so right here it says, here, I'm going to highlight this for you guys. So it says here, but in this case, our findings suggest that the methanol is being created by further chemical reactions once the plume is ejected into space, making it unlikely it is indication for life on Enceladus. My God, that is so classic NASA. It's like giving one of those like fart, plume stories about like, oh, swamp gas or whatever. But yeah, the reason why I wanted to talk about this article is methanol is, like I was saying, it's a process that's associated with biology. So let me show you what I mean. If you go up here in Google, and you just, we're going to use Google as our little search tool, our little handy friend here. So we're going to ask, how is methanol created? So it says here, methanol can be produced from natural gas, coal, and renewable sources such as municipal waste, biomass, and recycled carbon dioxide. In other words, mostly things that are made out of biological, or they used to be biological processes that have been degraded through time in evolution. So, well, not evolution, but just time. So if we go over here, I went to this one website, it's called the chemco.com, and I found this description describing what methanol is. And it says here, in terms of the production of methanol, natural gas is the most economical and widely used feedstock for methanol production. However, other feedstocks can be used. Coal is increasing in popularity as a feedstock for methanol production. So they're talking about natural gas as being the #1 source for the feedstock that they use to produce methanol. And then they go to coal as the next one. So let's take a look. Let's go back to Google and let's see how is natural gas formed. One theory is that natural gas was formed millions of years ago when plants and tiny sea animals were buried by the sand and rock. Layers of mud, sand, rock, plants, and animal matter continue to build up until the pressure and heat turn them into oil and natural gases. So basically, this theory is postulating that natural gas is mostly the decomposition of plants seashells, marine animals, and anything that gets in the sediment underneath the earth that eventually turns into oil and then has other gaseous processes that are associated, which creates natural gas. Okay, so let's look. How is coal formed? Okay, coal is an energy that comes from, it's stored by giant plants that lived hundreds of millions of years ago in swamp forests, even before the dinosaurs. When these giant plants and ferns died, they formed layers at the bottom of the swamps. Water and dirt began to pile up on top of the dead plants' remains. So the true top sources that they use as feedstock for methanol is basically just biological like plants or biological animals that have been stored under earth. So why is this NASA scientist so certain that these plumes have to be coming from some kind of chemical reaction that is happening in space? And the funny thing is, she doesn't even really explain what processes this is that creates methanol in space, when on Earth, everything that we know about methanol is created by biological process. Just like the red, that watermelon algae, that anytime we see red associated with a cold body, it's a biological signature. Then, then I read further in this article, and this is where I kind of got a kick out of it. So she seems so certain that right here, she says that it's unlikely it's indication of life in Enceladus, because she claims it has to be some kind of, space chemical process. Well, in the very bottom, it says here, and I'm going to highlight this again so you can see it. It says, observations aren't always straightforward. Oh, really? Okay, let's read on. To interpret our results, we needed the wealth of information Cassini gave us about the Enceladus environments. The study suggests a degree of caution needs to be taken when reporting on the presence of molecules that could be interpreted as evidence of life. Okay, is this not kind of the opposite of what you said before, where you guys seem so certain that this had to be some kind of chemical process that has happening in space? So in other words, what she's really saying is that in everything that we know on Earth, this has to be some kind of biological process. But her assumptions are always going to be that it's not biological. She's always going to put the idea of life as a last resort hypothesis in terms of trying to decipher the truth, which I think is kind of bogus, especially if life, is proliferated, or especially if the universe is proliferated life. If life is one of the prime ingredients of the universe, just as consciousness or gravity or anything else, it's really, really silly approach, a scientific approach, to always assume life to be the last possible resort. So I wanted to ask, does NASA lie? I think so. I mean, the last episode that we did with Gary McKinnon, who had Asperger's syndrome, he was a computer hacker who almost got taken down by the US government, almost got extradited and was sentenced to jail for life. Yet, even after all these threats, he still keeps claiming that he saw records of a secret space program. So, if there's a secret space program, then surely NASA has to be lying. Except, there might be a caveat to this. Because think about this. Maybe NASA is not completely lying. Maybe only a few individuals are lying and others are just not in a know. And then you might think, well, then why is NASA so far behind from the secret space program if, if these guys are not so smart? I think it's just a mixture of research and development and funding. So it's not that NASA or the scientists who are working in NASA and working really diligently hard and legitimately thinking that they're going and trying to prove life for the first time. I think with these guys, they're kind of kept in the dark, obviously, about the secret space program and all these higher technologies. But what I think is really driving the difference between the secret space program and NASA itself, it's literally, I think it's just funding. And research and development, meaning these scientists, they don't have the same research because most of the research that gets discovered by privatized organizations, they're privatized. They're not going to be in the public. So all those patents, all those new discoveries, all those anti-gravity technologies, those are in private domains. So NASA has to essentially rediscover all of that with the funding that is way lower than what the guys get, oftentimes from black budget market. So yeah, my take is that yes, NASA does lie, but it happens kind of a top-down thing, and I think there's a lot of people in the middle and in the bottom of NASA that are not aware that they're working for an organization that is systematically lying to the public. And what's also interesting is if you guys saw the recent Alex Jones story, you know, he's been around for a while. He's an activist, political activist. So in his show, in Alex Jones' show, there was a guy named David Steele, who was an ex-CIA agent, who essentially was claiming that there are possibly children in Mars right now being used as a slave colony. And he even talked about it in reference to pedophilia as this being one of the greatest forms of pedophilia. So I'm not going to talk more about that. I just want to let you know that there are other people, credible people like ex-CIA agents who are talking about this secret space program, who are saying that NASA's lying. And what do you guys think? Do you guys think that NASA's lying, or do you guys believe that that they're just being an honest organization? So for the next episode, I kind of just foreshadowed it. I actually wanted to talk a lot more about the David Steele and the Alex Jones interview, because I think there was a lot of backlash that happened all over the news talking about, oh, look, the silly man is talking about, he's bringing guests talking about, you know, slave children in Mars. I mean, how crazy, you know? Yeah, crazy, right? Tune back in and we can talk about it. Thanks for joining me. This is Felipe Osorio, signing out.